Well, it looks like the metals have been capped. And of course, Bitcoin is trending down. But if you think about it from the long term perspective, with silver close to $50 an ounce, it says a lot about what is truly worth holding on to in the midst of a great reset. And so I want to share my 2 cents and let you know that regardless of the hype and hopium, if Bitcoin failed today, who would really care? Rather than if gold and silver were to disappear, the world wouldn't be the same. Let's talk about this. All right, so I want to take a minute, share some thoughts in reference to just today's market activity. It's somewhat late afternoon, early evening, and I want to look at the price of gold and silver and associate it with the trending topic on the social media sphere in reference to the bearish nature surrounding Bitcoin and just the digital asset space in general. And I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but just hear me out, because at the end of the day, we're all witnessing a reshuffling of the deck. And if it wasn't for the blockchain narrative, the distributed ledger technology having been introduced and implemented in every facet of our lives now, from tokenization, real world assets, the whole digital ID system and CBDCs and stablecoin, all that stuff is computer code. And granted, technology, if used for good, can be beneficial. But a lot of the things that technology is being used for today, in my opinion, won't end up being helpful for humanity once we get closer towards 2030 and beyond. And the reason I use the words or the numbers or the year 2030 as a reference point, because that is the year that the World Economic Forum has placed as the pivotal moment where the fourth industrial revolution will be complete and the great reset will be accomplished. Now, regardless of who's in control, who's wearing a suit in this administration, who's not, who's talking this, at the end of the day, all the technology companies have signed off on that agenda. And so it's just a matter of being patient and allowing the UN to influence governments so that they can accomplish things on the logistics side as well as the legislation side, because they're both working together. But that's another subject matter. But price action. So here we are now, gold and silver being capped. 4,000 is the ceiling as of right now that the bullion banks are trying to defend, and $50 silver is the cap that they're trying to defend in silver. And yet Bitcoin touched 126 a couple of weeks ago. Now it just touched $99,000. And if you look at it from a 16-year standpoint, it's doing wonderful. But if you look at it in comparison to the actual utility and the long-term use case of Bitcoin, I don't think it carries any way, near as much importance in the grander scheme of things, because I believe personally, after 2030, Bitcoin will be irrelevant, because Bitcoin to me has always been placed as a tool to carry off the greatest heist in humanity by enticing people, luring people, and exciting people to willingly exchange the physical for the digital. And it's doing a great job of doing that. But also keep in mind that right now, outside of maximalists, the market makers and manipulators that use all the products to short and to go long and to manipulate the price of the digital asset space in general, and governments, beyond that, there's 8 billion people on this planet. And only, I heard some figures about 700 million people might have exposure to cryptocurrency in general. And so the whole adoption crave is what is needed to drive digital assets to prices that we could never fathom, which between now and 2030, we're going to get that, because we're going to get a lot of hyperinflationary type of environments from around the world. And that currency is designed specifically to flow into digital assets, not into gold and silver deliberately, because the last things the government wants is for people to run towards tangible when they're being steered towards the intangible. But simply, let me just share my 2 cents. And as always, feel free to leave some thoughts, ideas, suggestions, some comments. But I wanted to just take a closer look at silver and gold, and silver in particular, because I believe silver at this current moment has already crossed the, I would say the finish line, but it's crossed a check mark or a checkpoint in the direction towards a finish line, because of the current price it's at now at $47.11. And so I remember almost a decade plus now, when I first started to realize the importance of sound money, we were just coming off of a $30, $31 high surge in 2012-ish, 2013-ish, and then they kept it at $15, $20 forever. But to have surpassed 54 a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and to now be at 47, and to know that there's a global effort to get physical because the supply of readily available silver above ground is not anywhere near what's needed to meet demand. It's going to always, silver and gold will always catch a bid because it has utility outside of wealth preservation, because of technological advancements that we're moving in towards can't be done unless these two are secured. And you can secure some, but just the question is at what price? And of course, Bitcoin, they love to have us think that 21 million. Once again, it's computer code. There's Bitcoin Cash, there's Bitcoin SV, there's Bitcoin Gold, there's a lot of other digital representations that are also 21 million. From a propaganda standpoint, to have the exclusivity framework of just BTC being numero uno, nothing else, nothing better compared to it, after a while it gets old. But the reason I want to make this little quick take here is because I was looking at a chart a moment ago, and as I was looking at the zoomed out version of silver, and so let me make myself smaller so you can see what I'm trying to get at. And to me, the reason I say we've reached a check mark or checkpoint of success is that here you have the 3 previous surges over the last 40 plus years. And to think, majority of my adult life has been centered around reaching an all-time high in silver, to where at what point will it break? At what point will they let it run loose? At what point will we be able to get to $50 silver? And so 1980, the Hunt brothers tried to manipulate things. It didn't work. After the great financial crisis over here, QE1, QE2 led to close to 40-something dollar silver. And here we are now in an environment where Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, says everything is great, the economy's fine, tariffs is working, money's pouring in left and right. At the same time, India, China, and all the other, unknowns are racing to get physical gold and silver. And so based upon this graph here, if you zoom out from this 40-year standpoint, silver's already won, because not only has silver stackers come to the realization that silver is important, but you have people waking up to the realization that silver has always been money, and it is not going nowhere, and it can't go anywhere because humanity can't function without silver and gold, literally. But then again, we can function without computer codes to some extent. And so just seeing $47 on this graph here lets me know that silver is, even on a slam down, the chance of them being able to slam down below 40, 30, 20 at this point, given the surge in demand globally, is very unrealistic. I will never say never possible, because you never know what they can pull out the hat. But like I mentioned in previous episodes, there's a difference between spot price and a physical price that you will pay when you go and try to buy some. You're going to pay the spot plus premium. And I guarantee you, if they were to manipulate silver and or gold down to, just say if it was down here somewhere beneath me, where it was like $10, $11 during this time frame here, you would not be able to find it nowhere. Because even the bullion dealers, because they don't want to lose money on having bought into the silver stockpile that they have at 30, 40, 50, whatever they pay for it. So they're not going to let it go for $10. Nowhere online, nowhere at pawn shops, nowhere will somebody be willing to give you an ounce for whatever that spot price is. But they will give you that ounce at that $10-ish spot price with the $40 premium, because they're going to get their $50 plus at this current moment. But then again, you can't say the same thing for Bitcoin and the other digital assets. What do I mean? On the screen here, we have just some price action as of the last day or so with Bitcoin, and it got to $99,000. Now, it's good to say you could see Bitcoin, once we have a complete meltdown or whatever that might come about in the near future, because it's coming, you can see Bitcoin drop to 30,000, 40,000, 20,000. And for people who are sitting on the sideline with cash, you're going to be able to go buy some Bitcoin for 30,000 or 40,000. And ain't no premium on top of that. So if you can get hold of some, you can go ahead and get yourself some as much as you want. And that's the difference between a supposed scarce asset that will be available in comparison to a tangible, real world wealth preservation and technologically necessary medium in the form of gold and silver, platinum and palladium as well. And you're going to pay spot plus premium because it being a real world substance. Dealers, coin shops can't afford to let anything tangible go at a loss. And right now, silver and gold, because of the global demand, the current spot price that we have is not the true nature of an ounce, cost-wise. But then again, when it comes to the crypto space, right now you can go find some Bitcoin, a whole Bitcoin for 99,000 or 100,000. And when it goes lower, because it will, because it's going to be a market drawdown altogether. The point is, silver and gold will drop, but you won't be able to get it at that price. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, all the other cryptos, you can get those at whatever price they bottom out at. And of course, the government's going to print to the wazoo. It's going to take off, and you'll make up your currency plus some, because Bitcoin will go to $1 million. The government needs that. And then to me, that's a result of the hyperinflationary environment we're going to be in, because the next event, or the banking crisis now that the banks are experiencing, the government's going to need 10 trillion just to start trying to stabilize things. And that 10 going to turn to 20. So where do you think 20 trillion is going to go? It's going to go to anything that has any type of monetary properties at all. And that's where people in the crypto space will be heavily rewarded, because our currency will be dead. But then again, those who have gold and silver, constitutionally known as money, and legal tender when it comes to gold and silver, minted by the United States Mint, they are money still. So once again, that's another caveat people don't talk about. A silver eagle in your possession, it says $1 on the back, but no one's gonna accept a dollar for a dollar. You're gonna need 50. And then when things break and they print to the wazoo, you're gonna need 300, 400 of these pieces of paper just to start to get one of these. So this is just a different perspective, something to consider that a lot of people don't talk about, because I'm noticing all the bearish talk when it comes to crypto, and people love to take shots. I'm not taking shots. I'm just being 100. I'm being real. Let you know how things will play out, because at the end of the day, if Bitcoin fails, the world keeps going. No one really will care other than the people who have an invested interest to promote and to pump digital ledgers. But the people who really realize what's going on a greater scale from a reset standpoint, especially the great reset standpoint, can see things a little bit differently. But then, this is my opinion. Could be 100% wrong. But as always, if you guys found interest in this video, hit that thumbs up, drop a comment. I know I probably pissed some people off. We'll be curious to hear your thoughts, because once again, I've been studying this for quite some time now. And I've been watching all these markets for over a decade now. So I feel very confident that I can back up what I say to some extent, minus the emotions. Please don't come at me with emotions. No name calling, no, none of that. Just show me things that are valid based upon previous events, mind you. Because once again, Bitcoin's never been through a monetary reset, such as the dollar, the pound, and all along, gold and silver's been there all along. So anyway, just having fun. But as always, for those who might be new, you never know, resources in the description. Check them out if you guys are interested. Please.